Hello, everyone. It is time for What Authors Need to Know in an Ever Changing Market. My name is Tina Hogan Grant. I am the award winning and best selling author of the Tammy Mellows trilogy and the Sabella series, and I am also the founder and host of A Cuppa and a Ladder podcast interviews with authors. And I am the moderator tonight for this panel, and I'd like to begin with introducing you to our panel. I'm going to begin with Desireé Duffy. Desireé is the founder of Black Château, the Webby Awards winning books that make your brand, and the BookFest. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself, Desireé? And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. I just think this is awesome. This is a panel of BookFest Bellwethers sharing their expertise. I think this is the first time we've done something quite like this, so I'm excited.
Me too. And next, I'm going to go to Beth Freely, award-winning author, copywriter, and BookFest Bellwether. Her novels include Beyond the Steps of Stone, The Loch, and The Legend of Captain St. Pierre. Welcome, Beth. How are you this evening?
I am wonderful, Tina. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself?
I am also a web designer, and I specialize in doing websites for authors.
Fantastic. And Dr. Dominique McLaughlin, I'd like to welcome you to the panel. He is author of Be a Better Manager in 5 Minutes a Day and creator of the Business Leadership Lab, the Good Bits Guide for Passionate Professionals. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Tina. Wonderful to be here.
Thank you for being here. And is there anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself?
I guess what I'm trying to do is to help people who are trying to build a bit more of a business around their book or related to their book. So that's kind of my expertise.
Oh, I like that. I do like that. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Mickey Milkelson, publicist with Creative Edge Publicity and an expert at promoting authors and books. Welcome, Mickey.
Thank you so much for having us, and just really excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself?
Other than the fact that I represent both indie and traditional authors in a variety of different mediums, we'll obviously go through all that, but I'm about Bellwether as all, and I'm really happy to be here, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. And lastly, Amy Raftichandran. I hope I didn't mess it up too much. Welcome to the panel, award-winning CEO of Abundantly Social, co-owner of Top Shelf Magazine, and named Top Women Changing the Face of Business. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm just excited to be here with everybody.
Me too. Well, thank you so much for being here. I want to begin our discussion with the term writing to market. And Desireé, I want to start with you. When we hear the term writing to market, what does that mean exactly?
That means you walk up to a literary agent at a conference and say, how can I write to the market? What are you looking for next? And then the exciting part is when that literary agent looks you dead in the eye and says, I don't know. I think authors are constantly trying to figure out, what is this market looking for? What can I produce that is going to, hit the nail on the head? And I think that, unfortunately, it gets frustrating because so many authors are told that. And I say that story because that literally just happened to me at WriterCon in Oklahoma City a few weeks ago. But it's true. The industry itself, and I think this is important for authors to realize, the industry itself oftentimes doesn't know exactly what it wants. And I think underneath it all, if an author is writing from their heart, they're writing in a genre, telling stories that they want to tell, sharing in something that makes sense for them and is authentic. I think that's probably one of the most important things that an author could do when writing to market. Now, with that said, I know there are some hot genres that are out there. I do see trends in dystopian. Mm-hmm. I think that science fiction and fantasy and horror, a lot of that genre fiction is really bubbling to the surface. Horror especially has gone through a little bit of a renaissance lately. So I do think if you kind of are looking at some of the top sellers lists, you're looking at genres that are becoming more popular, And even maybe you're not necessarily a horror writer. Maybe you're writing romance. Maybe you can do some kind of paranormal romance and intersperse some horror elements. I think stuff like that is what authors should think about when they think about writing to market.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when an author decides they want to write to market, now anyone can answer this question, how do they go about finding what genres are trending? What is a way to find out what genres are trending right now if they want to write to market? Anybody?
I'll take a stab at this one.
Okay.
Just really, yeah, I'll take a stab at it. Why not?
Okay, take a stab.
Yeah. So the number one thing that I tell authors when they're talking about it and they're like, oh, I want to sell all my books and I want to be like the next J.K. Rowling and make a lot of money from my books and all of these things. And so I'm writing then this genre, and this genre. And the question that I ask them is, do you read in that genre? Right? Because you can't just write a book because it's the trending genre, because that's going to change in 6 months, a year, it fluctuates, right? It's just a hot mess of a thing when genres just change all the time. You have to write in what you read and what you enjoy reading, because that's what you're passionate about. And that's what's going to sell, because you have written it and you're so passionate about it and you read it, right? So going to market or writing a book for market, you are your own market, because you should be writing on what you like to consume as a reader, right? And so I don't really know if you can, or I would recommend you write based on what's trending. And you'll kind of see what's trending because you'll have a lot of the movies will be based like that, or shows, or topics of conversation on Book Talk or X or anything like that. They'll start to kind of pop up a lot more. So you'll know what's kind of current with either today's generation or just with avid readers in and of itself, especially if you're in different Facebook author groups or reader groups. But you really should be writing for yourself in a genre that you love. So that's how I would take a stab and answer that question. I don't know if anyone else has any more food for thought, but that's what I would tell people.
Yeah, that's what they always say. Write what you know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Beth.
Mickey, do you want to go first? Okay.
Ladies first.
To add to what Amy is saying, I'm a voracious reader of all genres. So, authors cannot be afraid to take, the genre that they typically write in and pull a subgenre in. For example, Beyond the Steps of Stone is a romance novel, but it's heavy in dystopian and sci-fi, because I love sci-fi. And the concept of what happens, what happens when you wake up out of cryogenic stasis 2,000 years into the future. What are you going to find? As an author, I could have gone a couple of different ways with that. So, when you're writing to market and you're researching and you're looking for what's popular right now, authors cannot be afraid to cross those genres and subgenres at the same time. If you're a sci-fi fan and you read sci-fi and you read romance, feel free to throw it together. Same with action adventure. Legend of Captain St. Pierre, when my best friend and I pitched it to our publisher at the time, we pitched it as an action adventure romance because it was very heavy on the action adventure part. Pirates were very popular at the time. So, I definitely agree with what Amy said. Look at what's out there. Look at what's very popular right now. And, write to what you know and write to what you like. And don't be afraid to mix those subgenres in with your main genre, because you never know. You may create a genre that you weren't expecting that some other authors may jump on.
Great advice. And I like combining the two genres. That's a great tip. And Mickey, you wanted to add to that real quick?
I think so. To segue what everybody said here, the issue is that, and it's really formative, especially with indies. There is so much advice out there because everyone wants to help indies get forward, and there's so much advice. And so they're being bombarded with all kinds of different things as to what to do, what to write, how to market, what the platforms are, all of that. So the advice I give to my team, and I represent about 100 authors worldwide, but the advice I give to my authors specifically is Write what you want to write. Be who you are. Develop your branding the way you want to write your branding. And don't second guess yourself, because if you're comfortable writing what you're writing and you're comfortable talking about what you're doing, you're going to have success. And I always use the example of Pink Floyd, because when Dark Side of the Moon came out, EMI and every expert in the field told them, don't make this album. It is way too out there and it's going to flop. Well, Pink Floyd didn't listen to them. Album was on Billboard for 15 years. So this is one of the greatest albums of all time. Had they listened to all the experts, that album would never have been made. So there might be a new Stephen King out there, or a new J.K. Rowling out there, or someone like that. But if they listen to all the experts, tell them, don't write this book because it's the wrong genre at the wrong time, and your cover's not right, and all these things, it can hurt themselves in the long run. So I tell writers, be yourself. And if you're comfortable with that, you will find readers for your book.
There you go. Excellent advice. Okay, I want to move on. I'm sorry.
Tina, if I just say one quick thing. I think everyone's giving great advice. But the other thing to do is, if you've got a database of your readers, why not see what they want? That's one thing. And the second thing is, what's your strategy? Are you trying to build a business around your book, or are you just trying to write the things you love? And that changes what you might do. So I just wanted to throw that in.
No, that's excellent. I like that too. Okay, I want to move on to the business side of our books. We all love to write. We want readers to find our books. And Dominique, I'm going to start. Dominique, I'm sorry. Dominique, I want to start with you with this question. As much as we all love to write and want readers to find our books, it is our business. It is our business. And how should one treat being an author like a business? And how can they broaden their business based on their books?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Tina. So, it sort of builds a little bit on what we were just discussing previously, that, if you've got a strategy that you want to be selling online courses, or, a lot of authors turn into people who talk about how to publish, or talk about how to use Kindle, or talk about recording audiobooks. Like, there's a lot of things related to writing your own book that Beth's a good example with the website, author websites. So is there something you really want to do that you can build into your sort of plan, your strategy for your books being, in a certain kind of genre, or building a certain direction, building up your expertise, which then you can turn into the business of helping others, not necessarily authors. It may be a niche that you have. But there are a couple of things that most people are aware of, things like having a database, connecting with your readers, trying to make sure that you're gathering information about what people want, and the people that like you are the best people to give you that information. So that would be a good place to start.
That's a good one. And the other thing, when you talk about the readers, you've got a reader, they've read your book, and anyone can answer this question. What are the advantages of staying in contact with the reader even after they've read your book?
I think that's actually really important, because a lot of readers feel like they build up a relationship with the author. So you've got the opportunity. Some people do it as kind of like a fairly low level thing. Or perhaps they send an email once a month, or once every 6 months, or whatever. Or they might have a newsletter, or they might have an offer of some sort. Sometimes people use things like merchandising to just kind of add another point of connection. But I think the thing is, if you're writing the book with a plan to help build a business, you really want to stay in touch with those people. And if your plan is just to write more books, again, you want to stay in touch with those people because you want to tell them about what's coming up and so on. But I'm sure some of the others have lots of ideas too.
Okay, it's opened up panel time. Who wants to go next with this subject?
I'll jump in here because this is actually something that's, as an author who I've just put out like book after book after book this year. One of the things in my own business that has suffered is me keeping in touch with my readers. But I have found in the past that as I, to keep in touch with my readers, I stay active on social media. I put out a newsletter once a month, and I don't just include my own books in my newsletter. I get on newsletter swaps with other authors, and I promote their books as well as mine. I have used a service called Voracious Readers Only, where they, the readers sign up for my newsletter. They get a copy of my book. The only thing we ask is that, you go out and put a review. That's how I've built up my reviews. building up reviews, especially for indie authors, is very important because that helps our rankings on not only Amazon, but also on Barnes & Noble and Kobo and all of the other places that we have our books out. So keeping in touch with our readers is important because, one, it shows them our backlist in case they read one book and they want to check out everything else. Well, okay, here's my backlist. You guys can go check it out. 2, it lets them know when we have something new coming out. And 3, it also is a great way to get them to come out and meet us, to come to book signings, to come to local fairs, that an author may be doing. I did a local fair this weekend, and it was phenomenal because people in town were like, wait a minute, we have a local author? And they were coming over to meet me and to talk to me and to, learn about who I am. I actually, that's a way to network as well. We have readers, but these readers are also, people within our circle, people within our community that can also further our business. So by keeping open that line of communication and keeping that networking constantly going, whether it's with an email, whether it's social media, a podcast, or just doing a local event, they're our bread and butter. And, they keep us going, and they can also spread word. Hey, did you check out Beth Freely's new book? Yeah, she's a local author. They bring in other readers. So it's very important. It's a very big aspect of our business, and we have to keep that line of communication open.
Excellent. Yeah. And when you're talking about the reviews, that's one of the things I hear authors struggle to get are reviews. And not only on Amazon, but BookBub, Goodreads. And I'll start with you, Amy. Can you give some suggestions on how authors can find reviews?
Yeah. So me and Mickey kind of tag team in this. We have similar avenues in which we do, but finding book reviews is really just inquiring about beta readers or ARC readers, if you want to call them that. You can go on Book Siren. You can ask friends and family and friends of a friend, and you can put it out there too, like what Beth was saying in terms of staying in contact with your readers from a marketing standpoint and a consumer standpoint, right? We buy from people that we feel like we have some kind of relationship with, right? They fill some kind of void that we have or whatever. They take us out and help us escape from, time being, give us that stress release.
Mm-hmm.
And so staying in contact with them is important, but reviewers is kind of the same thing. So you can build up your own kind of reviewer-based, loyal review base just by staying in contact with them, being open to their feedback. And it really can just fall. I mean, in author groups, they have reviewers that they recommend that they use. Some will do book swaps. Those are good avenues. I mean, you're talking to the marketing person, so I'm always going to be like, Facebook has groups. You can network in emails, all those kinds of things. But honestly, you really have to start with friends, not necessarily family, because I always say family is biased. They love you and they think you're the greatest thing to write any book, right? So they're biased and we love them for that. But we need friends and then friends of friends, right? And then other authors. Like I have had a lot of authors find reviewers in their critique groups that they have. They end up wanting to read the full story as a whole and not just bits and parts. And then they will go and leave them reviews and they recommend it to their friends. So it's really all in just building relationships with other authors and, just friends of friends is how we do it, or we go on to Book Siren. Mickey is probably a better fit because he just goes out there and, throws everyone. And he's like, read this book. That's Mickey for you. So Mickey.
Thanks for that, Amy. My philosophy around reviews, and I'm going to speak to it from a media standpoint if I can, if that's okay, Tina.
Sure.
The business of authors, I really believe that there should be as much time and investment spent on the imagery of the branding of the writer and the book as you are writing it. And what I mean by that is get professional edits done properly.
Mm-hmm.
Pay a cover designer to design your book. Do not build it yourself. If you're going to have a headshot or a bio on your website, and please get a website, but if you're going to have a headshot, don't use a unprofessional looking selfie for your branding as an author. That's how an author is going to get reviews, is to have a decent looking cover, a decent looking synopsis inside or out. And if you can get some blurbs from some well-known people because your book looks just incredibly awesome and they want to read it, use those blurbs. Invest the money to maybe release the book on a time. Take 4 to 6 months, put it on a pre-order, try and get some editorial reviewers. Use those timelines to properly market it. Because if you put a book out a month, or even if you put it up on Amazon a month before your release date, you've shot yourself. You're not going to get those vaunted editorial reviews that you need to properly market your book. So if we're in the business of being, and I'm sorry to harp on this, but it's just something that drives me batty. If we're in the business of being authors, and that is our business, we need to take the business as seriously as we are as when we're writing the book. And these are some of the things that will give you better effectiveness and better trajectory if you do that.
Excellent advice. Now, I love what you said about the cover and the editing. The cover is a billboard for your book. That is the first impression. That is what's going to draw, the reader in, as far as I'm concerned. They're going to pick up that book, but they need to have a great cover to do that. So I love what you said about the cover. Desireé or Dominique, do you have anything else to add regarding reviews?
I do think I'll jump in and underscore what Mickey's saying. And it's funny because I just today finished up an article for Indie Author Magazine. Shout out to them for providing the special BookFest issue as well. And one of the things, so I'm writing for indie authors about getting book reviews. And one of the things that was in my article is about how you need to do it in advance. And you definitely do. But then you have so many indie authors who are on these rapid publishing deadlines. So they're doing it differently. So we cannot give the same advice to both camps. If you're an indie author or a self-published author and you're writing for that rapid, very ravenous market, like romance, again, those romance readers are going to read, 5 books in a week. You might not necessarily be able to get those editorial reviews. If this is your memoir and you've taken 5 years to write it, then heck yeah, do what Mickey just said and take 5 months before you publish it so that you give time. You need to give time to those reviewers. And I think that's what a lot of writers don't estimate. Now, if you're with a publisher, and even sometimes small press, hybrid press, or different publishing groups, they can help you get those reviews too. But you need to give that reviewer time to request a copy of it on NetGalley, for example, time for them to actually read the book, write the review, publish the review. So yeah, I generally tell people you need at least 3 months for that. 4 is optimal. And heck, if you look at what the publishers are doing, the top publishers, they'll put a title up there on NetGalley for 6 months. So the more you can emulate them, the better. If that is your goal. If you're one of those genre fiction indie authors and you're just churning them out, you might want to have a different strategy because that's going to suit you and your audience.
There you go. Is there a fee for NetGalley for authors? I'm curious. I've never used it. Yeah. There is a fee.
Yeah. So generally speaking, NetGalley it's a galley copy. Back in the day, galley copies used to go out, didn't even have any cover design yet. Right. But it was so that the media and book reviewers could get a copy of the book and review it in advance. That's where you got those editorial type reviews or those blurbs on the back cover. New York Times says this book is awesome. That's how and why that happens. So a lot of publishers are automatically on NetGalley or on Edelweiss, and there's a handful of other ones too. But as an independent author or a single author, yes, you can. Not to mention there are firms out there. Black Château is one of them. There's plenty of other firms out there that can put you onto NetGalley. I think IBPA has a program in place. Writers and Publishers Network has a program in place too. So you don't necessarily have to pay the big bucks to be up on those platforms.
That's good to know. And Dominique, do you have anything to add to this little section we have going on?
No, I think that's all been covered pretty well.
Doing good? Okay. Yeah. Social media. I want to talk about social media. It is everywhere. There's no escaping it. It is now part of our lives, whether we like it or not. But I want to start with you, Amy. How much of a role or it's important for an author to be on social media?
Oh, it's crucial, and I would say pivotal, because it's one of those things that it's not going away. And it is one of the things people go and search on social media for books, trending books, book talk, video, romance, YA. Any hashtag is, like a keyword. It's a search engine, right? And everyone goes on social media. TikTok changed the game for some genres,
Again?
right? Romance is just thriving on TikTok, action, thriller, adventures, sci-fi, right? Making those books come to life, creating movie trailers, right? What other way can you imagine to get it out to, a mass amount of people, right? We used to do big newsletter, email blasts, and we still do those. But if you want, as my generation, millennials would say, instant gratification, right? Then you got to throw it up on social media. Count your likes if that's your thing. I'm not a big numbers person. We don't post things to get numbers. We post to keep the current reader base and fan base that you have up to date with what you're doing, where you're going, what your writing journey looks like, how you got from here to see, right? That's kind of what people want to see. But social media is where everybody goes. I can guarantee you, okay? And if not, you guys go with me on this, okay? Just go with me on it. No, I'm just playing. Every single one of us on here has been on social media at least once today. Now it's my job, so I have to be on it all day. Okay, I don't even get on my own anymore. I don't even manage my own. But every single person on here has been on some social media platform at least once today, right? And you have also checked your emails at least once today. Unless you're like me, Desireé, and Mickey over here that get like 500 emails a day, and we're just like, oh, I have another email, right? We try to probably avoid our emails. I do. But it's one of those things. Everybody is checking it at least once a day. And if you're running ads, you're paying for people's attention, right? And that sounds awful, and that sounds exactly as what it is. You are paying for people's attention. You're paying to send the notification that you have posted a new reel, or you have posted, I don't know, a new video, right? Or you have an ad campaign running and they might like this book, right? You're paying for people's time and for them to focus on your attention. And that's what social media is today. It's the way to get out in front of your people all over the world, not even just your state or your city or your friend group, all over the world, right? And it helps you make sales all over the world. And there's, to me, right now, I've been doing it for 13 years. So I don't, take what I say for a grain of salt. But there's no other way to do that, right? Social media, we all have a love-hate relationship with social media. It runs our lives as much as we don't want to admit, but it does. And we also love it as an author because you get to stay in contact with people. You make sales all over the world, right? But it can be overwhelming to maintain. But it is one of those crucial, and I would say the most important marketing strategy you could have is to have some form of social media implementation for your books, for sure. I don't feel like you can be a successful author without doing that, to be honest.
Yeah. A lot of things I hear from authors is, number one, which platform should they be more present on? And I also hear authors struggle about what content they should post. They struggle with what to, because they say you should post every day on these platforms. And I hear authors struggling about, well, what can I post? I don't know what to post. Can you give us some ideas on good content for authors? And I'll start with, let's go, Desireé.
Oh my. I think that they should post on the platforms that they themselves want to be on. When TikTok first came on the scene, I was like, yeah, y'all can go on TikTok if you want to be a dancing author. Do you want to dance? And the authors are like, no. And I'm like, then don't go on TikTok. No, nowadays it's changed because we've got Book Talk, and that really blew up a couple of years ago. But I think what's important is being on the platform that you want to be on, and also where your fan base is. If your fan base is more politically minded, maybe your book is nonfiction and it's about history or something that might lean more toward X. Hopefully, then you want to be on X, because that chances are that's where your fan base is going to be. If you're more of a Facebook user, and maybe you're to Amy's point, you find all of these wonderful groups on Facebook, then that is where you should be posting. If you're more visual, maybe you have a cookbook or you have recipes in your book because it's a cozy mystery, then Instagram might be for you. And it's not a bad idea at all to be on a couple that you love. But the one thing I do caution authors about is spreading yourself too thin. I actually had an author one time. She had a YouTube channel. We got her a talk with Macmillan Publishing for her book. It was amazing until they looked at her YouTube profile and realized this person who was claiming to be, and she was actually, wasn't claiming to be, somebody very involved with the media, hadn't posted on YouTube in a year. You don't want to be that naked author out there. You don't want your fan base to go looking for you on X and find out you're not even on X. So go where your fan base is. Make sure that you're posting the content for that fan base where you want to be and where you feel comfortable too.
Good advice. And back to you, Amy. Authors, of course, are going to post about their books, what the book's about, the blurbs, the covers. What other things can they post about, not just their books?
Yeah, so I always tell my authors, the authors that I work with, that you want to let your reader in. Don't swing the door open and be an open book like I am an open book, right? Don't be me. Don't be a full-on open book. But you want to crack the door and let them in to where they kind of get to know behind the author, right? Because they want to have some kind of connection to you besides just your writing, right? So we have authors we recommend. What do you do outside of writing? If writing is a hobby for you, well, what else do you do? Don't tell them your job, okay, or where you work. We don't need stalkers. Don't tell them that. But let them in, right? Like family is really important to us. So we try not to work on the weekends so I can spend time with my kids. And so we mimic that in our business model. So when we post social media, it may have my kids in it or a funny story about my kids. And then it goes back to about our authors and events coming up and those kinds of things. So dabbling in a little bit of personal information to that is going to give them a break from like, hey, buy my book, go read my book, or, review it. Oh, I love it. Let's do this. And this is what I'm reading. It kind of gives them a break from it where they kind of realize that you are a human. You're not just a robot that's writing a book, right? And they want to have some kind of personal relationship with you. So we generally recommend doing that. And if you're going to be at these events, let us know what events you're going to be at. And if people can get there, they want to come and see you and support you, especially if it's local to your community. Different podcasts or radio interviews that you're on, articles that you've written, books that you're enjoying, that you're reading, right? Different genres that maybe you're dabbling, that maybe you have some ideas sparking, right? But also getting your authors engaged and feeling like they're on that writing journey with you. So if you're dabbling between two cover design ideas, put them up there and let them give you their feedback, right? They want to feel like they're a part of this journey with you because you've impacted their life through your story, which is crazy to think, right? If you've written a fantasy and you've taken them off into loops and bounds in space, right? Which is, a little bit lighter than what I like to read, but going through that, you've impacted that person's life. You've taken them away. And so they feel like they have this relationship with you. So let them in, let them feel like they're a part of this journey with you. Social media was meant to be social and to be fun. And so you have to go back to being social and engaging with your readers, just asking them questions, being like, hey, I was out and my dog decided to sniff every blade of grass. Talk about a 20-minute walk turned into 3 hours, right? So I guess I need to stop and smell the roses more. Doing things like that and just letting them know, hey, I'm a human. I have a life outside of writing and I want you to be a part of it goes a long way. At least we've had success in doing that. It humanizes you and it makes people feel like you're not just in it for their money. You really are passionate and have a relationship and you're invested in them like they are in you. And I think that's important to kind of kick it back old school on how social media kind of came about. So that's generally what we focus on.
Excellent advice. Go ahead, Desireé.
I was just going to add that, Tina, you should answer that question because I think that posting cute pictures and videos of your doggo is great advice.
Yeah, like Amy said, you bring them in just a little bit, but I think I might overdo it sometimes because I love sharing with my readers, about me, that I'm not just a name on a book. So I do post daily on our puppies, on my grandkids. But what also, and I want to bring this up too, is Facebook groups. To me, that is my base. My base is my Facebook group. And like Desireé said, you go where your base is. And I do have, accounts in other platforms, but most of my time is spent on Facebook because that's where my base is. So thank you for that. But Beth or Dominique or Mickey, do you have anything else you want to add as far as social media goes?
The one thing I'll talk about again, I talk about everything from the traditional media sense. That's what I talk about because that's my strength. That's what I do. And when I talk with authors, they're always asking me, what's the reach of this show? Or what's the reach of that podcast? And my comment back to them is, end of the day, it's not really going to matter, because if you have a strong social media presence and you're sharing those links out to the groups that you have, the reach is not going to matter. Eyes are going to see that podcast, whether they get 100 views or 50 views. If you're doing your job as the writer and as the guest on their show, if you're marketing it out to those social media aspects, reach is not going to matter. And authors don't like it when I say this, but I truly believe that. It is not the podcast, TV show, the radio show. It is not their job to build you up. It's actually your job to build up that episode, because you're the one that's being featured in that show. So, and you can't do that if you haven't got a website or a strong social media aspect. That's my opinion. And if it's negative, it's negative, but I truly believe that.
I'm talking about websites. I want to ask Beth, you are a web designer. How important is it for an author to have a website?
Oh, it's very important. Mickey has, emphasized that twice. And every author that has come to me, asking, how important is this website? I've had authors come to me for editing and they didn't have a website. And I'm like, where's your website? No, I don't have one. Why? Your website is, besides your social media, your website is your brand. It's your public face. It is where everyone will find you. You don't even have to worry about Google rankings with your website, because more than likely you're the only person with that website name, and somebody goes looking for Beth Freely. By goodness, my website's going to be the first one up there, and they can go right to it and see what's there. It's your public face. It's your brand. It's a place where you can put all your favorite reviews, all the information on your books, where people can buy your books. Because we live in an age where traditional brick and mortar bookstores are unfortunately becoming, fewer and far between. Mm-hmm. So, maybe somebody doesn't want to buy it off of Amazon. You have a website, man, they can come straight to you and buy it. It's a place to put all of your podcast interviews. If you're going to take the time to sit there and do a podcast interview and use it as a marketing tool, by goodness, have it on your website so people can go back and watch it and see it and listen to it and experience who you are and find out more about you. It is besides social media and your physical books, your website is your most important marketing tool out there. And it's very important for authors to have a website. I can't stress that enough with my authors that I edit for that come to me, well, I don't have a website. Why? I've even gone as far with my company, the Muses Funhouse. I went ahead and I have a friend who runs her own business doing websites. And I went to her and I said, Anne, I said, what do you recommend for a hosting platform where I can host a bunch of websites? She goes, go to SiteGround. She goes, you can get 500 slots for what you're paying right now for your one website. And I did. And I've told authors, I said, if you cannot afford a GoDaddy or you can't afford someplace to host, come and talk to me. I got spots. I will give you a spot with hosting. Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit, but it's not going to cost you $300, $400, $500 because a lot of indie authors, they don't have that kind of money.
Right.
Okay. So for a minimal fee, if you want to build your site on WordPress, go for it. You need a place to host it? Let's talk. I got a spot for you. You want some help with that? Let's talk. Let me give you some advice. Let me show you. Even the most basic author website with an about page and a page with your books is going to be more important to an indie author than anything else. And I know a lot of indie authors out there, like I said, they can't afford some of these other places. They can't afford these packages, so you need a place to host, come talk to me. You need somebody to help you do your website. I will help you. You can't afford this right now. Okay. Can you afford $50 a month? Okay. So let's set up a retainer and let's get your website up. There is absolutely no reason why an author should not have a website. They need to have that website. It's extremely important. Yeah.
Excellent. And any other suggestions regarding the websites? Mickey, Dominique?
Just
Amy?
to follow up on what Beth was saying, like in essence, it's your opportunity to control to some extent how people see you and how you want to relate to your readers. So again, through a website, you can actually start building that mailing list and start sending out your various publications, notices, newsletters, whatever you want to do. I think the other thing too is that point about all the different places you appear. All of those things like videos and turning those videos into articles and podcasts and putting transcripts, all of those things help to build your brand on the internet so that people can find you more easily. I had the misfortune, Beth, of putting my name in and finding out someone else with exactly the same name, which I thought was a bit strange. So the first thing I would say is that you should really buy the domain for your name. That would be the first thing to do before you publish your book. And then definitely get some good advice and set up a good website that's consistent with the brand, the strategy of what sort of business you're trying to do, and so you can engage with your readers.
Perfect. Anyone else? Go ahead, Mickey.
And the other thing with this, and I agree with everything that both Dominic and Beth said, but the other thing with this is if you're traditionally published with a small press or even the big four, getting a website doesn't mean you rely on the publisher and put your name onto the publisher's website and leverage that as your website, because that's ineffective, actually. And when you're looking at the minute that a publicist like myself or Desireé pitch an author, in most cases, that media outlet's going to start looking that individual up. And if they haven't got a website or if they're using the publisher's website, you run a really, really good chance of not hearing anything back or hearing no, because there's no branding there. Authors who are using publisher websites as their branding, it's simply not effective. It really isn't. So get a website, bottom line.
Okay, so we talked about social media, we've talked about websites, but there's also traditional media. And I'm going to direct this to you, Mickey. That's your expertise. When we say traditional media, what does that include?
It can include all kinds of things that people may not even think of. It'll include podcasts. It'll include book reviews. It'll include guest posts on magazines and articles on websites. It'll include TV and radio and all kinds of different aspects around that. And just because and I've broken all kinds of rules with this, just because you're a science fiction or a horror author doesn't mean you can't be focused on a romance blog if it ties in, because romance readers don't just read romance. They read nonfiction, they read science fiction, they read horror, they read thriller, all kinds of different things. So traditional media can be spun in so many different ways. And Amy hears me say this all the time when I'm talking with writers. I'm not focusing on the book when it comes to traditional media. I'm focusing on the author individuality and the author branding. Because if you're a writer, you're going to write more than one book. And there's no saying you're going to write in the thriller genre always. You might write in different genres as well. So it's really important to build out the branding of the individual and get them out there rather than the book itself. And so there's all these different aspects that you can do.
Excellent. And if someone is seeking to be on a podcast, be on a magazine, how does an author go about researching that? Can you give any advice, or anyone?
What do you mean by, was that towards meeting or was it for the group?
Anyone on the panel. If they choose to try and be on a podcast, or if they want to be on a blog, or if they would like to be featured in a magazine, how do they go about researching that? Where can you give some advice for authors on how they would accomplish that?
Does anyone go ahead?
Hire Mickey or hire Desireé. How's that?
That's what I was going to say. I was like, these two people over here is what your best options
There you
are.
go.
I was just pretty much
He's like,
thinking
I
that
don't wanna
entire
say it.
bottom row.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, is this that kind of panel where I can just unmute and be like, this is true facts. Go over there.
There you go. There you go.
Honestly, Tina, and it's something that me and Desireé do really, really well. It's all about building relationships with the media. And as an independent author, you're busy writing. You're trying to craft your story. Do you really want, as an author, I'm going to ask the question out there hypothetically. As an author, do you want to be spending 8 to 10 hours a day trying to build networking relationships with media? Because when I do a book launch for a brand new release, I'm sending out between 300 and 400 individual emails to people. I'm also cold calling. I'm trying to build relationships up. And now those have taken over an 8-year to 10-year span. There's some relationships in the media aspect. I'm sure it happens to Desireé too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to send a press release. I just send a name and the interview's done because they know the kind of people we represent. And we're going to tailor fit our clients to their show and make sure that they are a right fit. So there's a lot of things that need to happen within that. But Desiree's right. Hire a publicist.
There you go. That's what I wanted to hear, because authors, you hear authors all the time say, I don't have time to do all this. I just want to write. And
You
that's
save
where,
time. Yeah, you save time. You get legitimacy. You get someone working on your behalf so you don't have to. All kinds of different things like that.
yeah. Excellent. I want to do a final discussion on AI, another aspect that is changing our lives quicker than I would like it to, but it's here. It's not going anywhere. And I want to ask, who shall I ask? I can ask all of you, of course. But let's start with, I don't know, Beth. I'm sorry, maybe I picked the wrong person. But AI, how important is it for authors to be on top of the AI that's coming out so quickly?
AI is, it is a touchy subject among authors and among the author community. First off, I think there needs to be more education on what programs we as authors use that is true AI and what is not. Grammarly is not AI. Grammarly is a grammar program.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, I think AI could be a tool. That is what it was designed to be, a tool. That does not mean that authors should be using it to write their entire book. If you have a plot hole or you're stuck, we should feel comfortable enough to jump on an AI program and say, I'm stuck here. Throw me out 5 ideas. That's how authors should use AI. We should not be writing our books with it. Our books should be coming from here, not from a computer model that has been programmed to, pull stuff from the internet. Authors who do use AI for research or for the tool that it is need to make sure that they follow up that research and make sure that what the AI has given them or has suggested is correct. It is still too new for us to be relying on it. For me personally, I'm backing away from it. I am not ready to stop using my mind to tell my stories. So it's going to be a touchy subject with me for a little while, and until it is further along, as far as the programming background of it goes. There's also the intellectual property aspect of it, and what has been used to train the AI. There's a lot of misinformation, I think, floating around about how the AI is being programmed, how the AI is being trained, what has been used to train it, etc. So until a lot of that becomes more transparent, until these companies that are programming the AI are more transparent about how they've programmed it, what they've programmed it with, authors have to be extremely careful how they use it. If you want to use AI to give you 5 topics for a blog, go for it. If you're going to use AI to write a book, walk away.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick before we end this discussion, which has been fabulous, by the way, but any other thoughts on AI?
Well, I wanted to kind of add to Beth. So I am very much, we work primarily with indie and self-published authors, and that's my happy spot. That's my pride and joy. It's what I like to read. And AI has done a lot of damage to them. So self-published authors, if you don't know this, hopefully you do, but if you don't, they are the underdog in the publishing community. They have a very steep hill to climb being self-published. And so when AI came out, and a lot of people, like Beth kind of alluded to, were using it to write their book, and they were self-publishing said book, self-published authors were getting a better reputation than they have been in the past. And they were just starting on that uphill journey of having a better reputation than they did 5-6 years ago. Now with the AI and using that to fully write a book, and now you can just publish that book, has done more damage to them. You have incredible, talented authors in the self-publishing market. Some of the best books that I have read have been self-published. And so AI, I have a love-hate relationship with you. I do, but it has done more damage to the market that I thoroughly love and enjoy, because it has made their climb, which they already had such a steep climb anyways, for just respect and success in and of itself, now has made that even steeper because of it. Because not that I'm saying that like you can't use AI to help you as a tool, as like a reference point, like Beth was saying, but you cannot use it to write an entire book. I mean, talk about copyright issues, you're going to have to really educate yourself on how to copyright that content. You're not really coming up with the idea yourself. So to me, it would be skirting the line on calling yourself a writer, skirt that line a little bit. But I think just with the market that I love, it's done a lot of damage. And I don't feel like I feel like it's been abused and not used the way it was supposed to be. And so it's damaged that reputation in which self-published authors were just getting around that bin. And it's hurt them a lot, to be completely honest.
I agree with everything you said. And we are out of time. But this has been a fabulous discussion. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for your expertise, Desireé, Dominique, Beth, Amy, and Nikki.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting this, Tina.
Thank you, Tina.